The next is, who did you get your requirements from, right? So typically for a B2B product, for example, you would have, there are three main sources from whom you get your requirements. There are multiple, but these three are the big ones. The first is um, customer, right? So if you listen only to customers, all you will get is day-to-day issues and day-to-day problems that they run into, and some good ideas from certain customers, but you would really not get a um, good mix of future-looking features or insights into how you can make your product better. So just focusing on customer feedback is not sufficient. Now, if you look at the next source of requirement, the sales team always is wanting that one feature that all customers are looking for and every other competitor has. So every time you talk to the sales team to gather their input, all you will hear is the thing that you don't have in your product versus what is actually working well for them as well as for our customers. And then the third is, if you're the third source is your CX team or the customer experience team, and for each member of the CX team, and rightly so in some cases, their customers' needs are the most important. They are more focused on serving their customers and delighting their customers that they are assigned to. So their customers' needs are the most important. So the larger the customer, the louder the CX team assigned to that customer is. And all of us at some point or other have faced this, where we tend to pay attention to the loudest voice in the room, and a lot of times that is the CX team that has a larger customer that they are responsible for. So again, in terms of where you get the requirement from, you need to have a good mix of what you hear from sales, what you hear from customers, and what you hear from the CX team. Then the next is, next question you want to answer is, how do you prioritize, right? So this is where this is the most exciting part of a product manager's job, but it can also be nerve-wracking, because your product roadmap as well as your product is only as effective as how well you have prioritized. And prioritization requires you to make trade-offs, like Naren talked about earlier. So it is important to understand how you would go about doing your prioritization, right? So there are a number of ways in which you can prioritize your requirements or your features, but one that is very well proven and is well known in the industry is the pragmatic marketing prioritization framework. It provides you a framework to prioritize your features by assigning scores to two key factors. And the first is market evidence, and the second is customer impact. The business priority is on which you prioritize your features is calculated by multiplying the market evidence and the customer impact. The feature with the highest business impact, business priority score, gets prioritized first, and you go down the priority order based on the business impact score. The market evidence is defined as the percentage of customers with the problem for whom the feature will solve a need, or number of customers facing the issue for which the solution needs to be prioritized. It could also be, if you're looking at prioritizing some of the ongoing day-to-day issues, and if you're getting multiple of them and you want to know how to prioritize them, market evidence can also be the number of times the problem was reported. So you can use that to prioritize your day-to-day cases as well. The customer impact is more nuanced in that you have to assign different scores of 1 to 5 based on different categories. So as is shown here, you would look at customer impact in terms of whether it's a showstopper. Can they carry out the workflow or the primary use case for what they are trying to accomplish with their task? Does it have a revenue impact? Does it have a cost impact? Is it nice to have, or are there any other workarounds to solve the same problem? So it is, if a certain feature is not in, so the next slide, it talks about how do you go about identifying what the impact be. So as you can see here, if a feature is not in the target segment that you are going after, but you feel like it's a feature that should be part of your product, you should really be assigning a really low impact, because you're not targeting that market segment at this point in time. Similarly, if you have a feature that is like table stakes, and you cannot sell the product without that feature, it's the minimum purchase criteria, you would assign an impact of 5 for that particular feature. The reason customer impact is nuanced is because you have to use a good judgment to assign the scores 2, 3, and 4. This will come with more experience as you talk to customers, as you go through your discovery process. Those are the things that will help you identify what is the customer impact that is not as clear as whether it's in the target segment or if it's a minimum purchase criteria. And also the other thing to remember is there are some times when you would want to assign a customer impact, which is an overriding factor, which is because of a contractual obligation or a compliance requirement. So if your customer contract has a feature, and the customer is expecting that be delivered because they are paying for it and it was part of the contract, you have no other option but to actually build that into your product. You don't want to do that with every single customer. You want to watch for making sure that you're not building a feature just for one customer. You're building it for the market. So you want to watch for it, but there will be some situations where a feature gets into a contract, and in that case you have to assign a customer impact number that's an override number really high, so that you don't end up not prioritizing that particular requirement. The same applies with any compliance requirement. So if you have a federal, state, or local compliance requirement that you have to build into the product, you have to be able to assign a customer impact score that is an override, so that you are building that feature to meet the compliance need. So the customer impact and market evidence are two key factors that you have to take into account when you're prioritizing.